Finally, with the war between the land and the sea, we've got some good fucking Doctor Who. And I'm only half joking, by the way. The last good episode of Doctor Who was The Story in the Engine. And then what we had with the Interstellar Song Contest to Wish World to the Reality War was a pretty bad trifecta of final episodes for the Ncuti Gatwa Doctor, with, in my opinion, Interstellar Song Contest not, certainly being the worst episode of Doctor Who of the 21st century. Like, it's just very, very bad showing overall. So the war between the land and the sea, expectations were incredibly low from fans, but the viewing figures have been very strong. The audience ratings and the feedback from critics has been a lot stronger than I expected. I actually think that the series might have legs and some really good word of mouth. But the war between the land and the sea, honestly, this feels like Doctor Who, what it should have been under the Bad Wolf era. So co-written by Russell T Davies and Pete McTeague, and I think with this, Pete McTeague might have secured himself the showrunner position of Doctor Who, because this does feel like Doctor Who at its core, even if it doesn't primarily feature the Doctor. Now, you could be forgiven for watching this series, starting the war between the land and the sea, and not knowing that it has a Doctor Who connection, and that might be one of the best ways to go about it. Even my dad, who does not watch Doctor Who at all and hasn't been following it, he has no idea what's going on in the show, even he watched the war between the land and the sea, and he was saying how good it was and how much he enjoyed it, and how the ending of episode 2 was really thought-provoking. And you know what? I'm inclined to agree. I thought that it was a really, really strong way to heighten the political climate and the populist talking points of the day, and actually literalize it and make it not abstract anymore. And I thought that was really, really effective. So the premise is that you've got Barclay Pierre Dupont, who's this low-level staff member at UNIT. He basically books all of the taxis, he does all of the transport and some of the busy and the grunt work. He somehow winds up being a replacement for this guy who basically he took over once on paternity leave and is now in the UNIT files as this guy's replacement. So when some fishermen encounter a sea devil and end up hanging it up and killing it, they're sent to investigate. Barclay is sent there as well. He's basically completely out of his depth. He has no idea what's going on, and he's just not equipped to be there. He essentially outs himself and is like, I should not be here. So they say, you could be a witness. That's fine. History is built on the back of ordinary people like you. Go for it. Yeah, have fun. Here's a camera. So the crucified sea devil was a great visual. Yeah, I thought that was really strong. And then what happens is that the sea devils, a really great scene, a really strong set piece where they essentially create like quicksand. Like they make the dry dirt under these soldiers' feet wet, and they come up from underneath, they drown them, and then they take their sea devil corpse and they out themselves to all of humanity at the same time. It's a little bit on the nose, it's a little bit arch, where you've got all of these hashtags and these trending topics and stuff, and Homo Aqua, the fish people, all of those Twitter and X and social media posts. I'm not really a big fan of that, but it's a good shorthand, I guess. So they're outing themselves to humanity, and it's essentially a diplomatic conversation between Homo Aqua. They create this tunnel outside the Houses of Parliament going into the River Thames to act as a bridge so that the Homo Aqua can swim through it, and then they can have face-to-face communications. That's probably the most unrealistic part of the war between the land and the sea. Getting anything built in London in a quick time period, completely unrealistic. But apart from that, I really liked how grounded that they took it, that this is, diplomatic conversations. There would be a big social media shitstorm. There would be press interference, and there would be drones, flying above the Houses of Parliament that the military have to shoot down because the press are trying to get all this information, and then Barclay's identity leaks and stuff like that. I really appreciated its grounded approach to that, and how there's no Doctor here, which means that the stakes are actually pretty high, particularly at the end of episode 2. Barclay's got his family, his estranged divorced wife, and also their child, Kirby, and they could die. Like, that's the thing about Doctor Who spin-offs. I'm one of those kids who grew up when Torchwood was being broadcast, okay? We lost almost all of those main characters in Torchwood. Owen, Toshiko, Yanto, they did not make it out of their own show. So, of course, Barclay's family could be up for the chopping block, obviously. So the stakes are naturally very, very high. The only character who you can pretty much guarantee is making it out of this is going to be Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, probably Shirley Ann Bingham. They're probably going to make it out of this. The rest, anyone could possibly be up for being axed in this show. They could kill Kirby. They could kill his estranged ex-wife Barbara, because that would that would up the stakes in the drama. The idea that Salt, played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw, comes into the negotiations with the bodies, the corpses of her two dead children. It's like they choked on your oil, they're blinded by your lights, and they're deafened by your trawlers and your ships. Like, if you were to try and get the parallels between the land and the sea people, then yeah, killing off Barclay's family is a pretty effective way to do it. So it's not just for shock value, there's actual dramatic legitimacy to killing off Barclay's family, even if you're in episode 2 or episode 3 of the story, because that would actually heighten the stakes and could even make Barclay, look badly upon Salt and the rest of the sea people, because he seems to, he's maybe a bit smitten by Salt, the sexy fish lady. But when it comes to the dynamic between Barclay and Unit and the politicians, I think that's a really fascinating way to basically have its cake and eat it too, as a populist piece of sci-fi drama. For those of you who may be watching outside of the UK, and if you are watching outside of the UK and you've not watched the series, or maybe you've pirated it or VPN'd it, whatever your poison is, it could be Thames seawater, whatever. But whatever you've done, in the UK, our water companies are owned by private corporations and private equity and stuff like that. And what they've basically done is that they've taken money that was paid through them by our water bills, and they funneled it up to stockholders, and they funneled it up to investors, and they've had massive multi-billion pound payouts. They've made an awful lot of money privatising an essential utility in the UK. But as a result, our waterways are polluted. Human feces and sewage is being pumped into our lakes and rivers and the sea on a near constant basis. And then when we get mad about it, oh no, now we have to up your water bills in order to pay for the new infrastructure. Like, genuinely, citizens' arrests would be perfectly legitimate for these people in the water companies, and I think that's a very populist thing. Nobody in the UK, apart from people who are paid to hate the environment, like, GB News and Talk TV, isn't GB News literally owned by fossil fuel companies? Reform UK is 90% funded from fossil fuel corporations and fossil fuel companies and individuals. Unless you are one of those individuals who literally has money in it, you are against the polluting of our waterways. It's an incredibly popular populist message to apply in a TV show in the modern day. It's basically an open goal. So when you decry it as woke, then I guess 95 to 99% of the UK population is woke in this particular regard. Albion, that was a really good reference, a really good callback to 73 Yards. The Albion Party that Roger Ap Gwilliam was the former leader for, he's making a comeback, or he isn't, Roger Ap, it's another politician who's going to try and utilize the Homo aquas turbulent image with the population. When you have Barclay, the average Joe Schmo guy, being the populist representation, and he's talking about how even our kids know that this is bad, but we're still doing it. Why do we let them get away with this? It's a perfectly valid question. Why do we let them get away with this? And to have it literalized by Salt, power move du jour, saying, okay, before we start, we want a glass of water from the Thames, and they bring him that dirty brown water. Is it on the nose? Yes. But my goodness, it literalizes it. It creates what's abstract and out there and distant and makes it immediate. It's good storytelling. And it's Doctor Who with something on its mind, with something to say, and God, I've missed that. When you have Doctor Who in the past couple of seasons, yes, you've had the guest writers like Inuit Elements from the Story and the Engine, Charmaine Angel Warfall in The Well, etc. A few guest writers here and there have been able to contribute something and have Doctor Who with a message and something on its mind. But I think when it comes to Doctor Who in the broad strokes, like season arcs or character arcs and building long-term relationships and dynamics, it's had nothing on its mind. And when it comes to Empire of Death, the big revelatory moment at the end of the story where the show essentially has to put its nuts on the table and say, this is what the past 8 episodes have been about, it's shooting outwards saying, stories, aren't they great? And that's it. It has nothing else to say. What is, like, with the reality war, what is Doctor Who trying to say to its audience? Glup shittos, generate content. That's it. This, and I'm not even trying to say this in regards to back in my day, but that's not Doctor Who, in my opinion. Because I want my Doctor Who like Malcolm Hulke. I want my Doctor Who like Robert Holmes. I want my Doctor Who like David Whittaker, like Terry Nation, like Rona Munro. I want it with summit to say. I want it to lay its nuts on the table metaphorically and say, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to talk to you folks about for the next 4 episodes if you're in the classic series. And obviously the War Between the Land and the Sea, we're only 2 episodes in to a 5-episode run. It could drop the ball dramatically. It could. But in terms of these first 2 episodes, really effective stuff. I think some of the dialogue is a little bit arch, like when Barclay gives that impassioned speech about the water companies and everything, and then he goes back to the hotel room and Barbara and Kirby are there and he's talking about how hyped he is now, and Kirby's saying how proud they are of him. I don't think I need it. It kind of just feels self-congratulatory a little bit. Like, obviously I think that the show does have something to say and it knows that it's important to say and that it's worthwhile to say. But I do think that the episode itself shouldn't be patting you on the back. It's a little bit... I love Thin Ice, written by Sarah Dollard. It's why I love the moment where the Doctor gives that speech about the value of a life. But then Bill afterwards says, Doctor, that was a great speech. That was a wonderful speech. Like, you took it too far. You patted yourself on the back a little too much. There are ways to do this. Boom did it alright. Boom did it very well. Boom is another example of like a guest writer in the Bad Wolf era being like, yes, this is what we have to say. And it's about the military-industrial complex and about religion and the language and storytelling of religion being used as an excuse to do bad things. Boom is the best episode of season 1 of Doctor Who. And it's probably one of the most disconnected of the wider story arc of season 1 as well. But it is still a really strong episode. Honestly, if Boom was the opener instead of Space Babies, we wouldn't be having these conversations about, the death of the show. I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards. Genuinely, though, sometimes it's just really admirable, I think, to just have a writer say, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what wisdom I want to impart on an audience if you'll permit me your time in your living rooms, I think that's what I want. How good was Lorne Balfe's music, by the way? The theme was really strong. I like Barclay's theme. I like the ambient music and the tension ratcheting when all of those unidentified life forms are going through the tunnel. Really, really good stuff. I really enjoyed that. His music overall. I've not listened to the soundtrack itself, but yeah, it's really strong. I like the cast as well. There's the guy what's his name? He was in Sex Education. He plays Maeve's potential hopeful boyfriend, who's also the artist. He's the gent in the wheelchair. George Robinson. Yeah, okay, yeah. I thought he was good. Isaac from Sex Education. Yeah, my wife recognized him immediately. It took me a little bit of time to figure out who he was or where I recognised him from. But yeah, he was good. Gemma Redgrave is strong as a supporting lead as well. I think if there is a bit of a weird moment, it is in episode 2 when Kate and Ibrahim are having that moment in the bedroom. And like, it's so inappropriate. It's so inappropriate. Like, and the TV, I'm not going to blame The War Between the Land and the Sea for incorporating it because it's a holdover from the main show proper. Well, my goodness, like, come on, like, it's so inappropriate and no one brings it up. Like, there's no acknowledgement of, you're his boss. You shouldn't be doing that. I'm not expecting characters to be perfect saints. I'm not expecting, like, oh, they've done a bad, morally dubious thing, so therefore I write them off and I can't engage with the show because I want purity testing in my media. Obviously not, but the fact that this is happening and no one acknowledges it is so strange. It was strange in Doctor Who, it's even stranger here. If there's one thing that's a little bit frustrating, but I get why they did it, like when Salt is incredibly explicit as to why they want Barclay to be the ambassador of humanity. And despite the very explicit reasons why, and she explained with video evidence and everything, she was like, Kate was like, why have they picked you? Why have they done this? Like, what's going on here? Like, they literally explained it. They were very, very clear, and I don't get why you don't get it. So that's a little bit frustrating. I'd be interested in knowing what is being set up for future episodes, because you've got that oil tycoon guy who is talking to the US politician and the French politician as well, the French representative. So clearly the invested interests in fossil fuel companies are going to try their best to make everything very bad. Gugu Mbatha Raw, I want to see what she does further along in the series. She makes a very strong first impression, but right now there's not a lot for her to work with as a character. I hope that we get to learn more about her when we go in future episodes to the Sea Devils area. And the missing tissue samples, yes. Are they Christians? No, that was fun. That was a good line. I hope that we learn more about her as a character. But she's a good presence. I liked that moment in part 2 when the politicians start getting all uppity and start yelling, and she appears to change gender. Whether or not like that was a deliberate, like, okay, so we need, in order to be taken seriously, I need to have a more physical or like traditionally masculine appearance, whether or not that was a deliberate thing that she adopted for that moment, or if that's leading up to something later on. I think that's really interesting. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing how it all pans out. The really thought-provoking thing that my dad was presumably referring to in episode 2 was when they come to the agreement that, okay, we really want to fix the oceans, we really want to solve pollution, we regrettably can't do it for the next 60 years. And Salt's like, okay, if you could do this a lot quicker, would you do it? Is it your greatest desire? And it is their greatest desire. It's really fun to visually depict the plastic apocalypse, that they are just returning all of the plastic and all of the fly tipping from the oceans. Something I don't know if many people have mentioned, Russell Tovey is really quite funny in this. He does all those squeaky rambling things with his voice. The subtitles pick up that his voice breaks as well. I do find Barclay's constantly going up and down in confidence a bit annoying. Yeah, it's a little bit inconsistent. They play it a bit too archly for my liking. But, Russell Tovey's fun in the role. I think he's good. I really liked the big fish people. The big fish who come through the tank after the traditional Homo Aqua, but before Salt does. I really liked that one. One really funny bit, the Titanic washing up in New York, that was very funny. That was a very good bit. It's what I was on about earlier. It is an actualizing of what is considered pretty abstract, just the idea that, okay, we've been throwing all this plastic and this junk into this other species home, and then they just throw it right back. Like, how would you folks feel if that was done to you? It's good. It's just the foundation for good sci-fi. It's the foundation for good high concept drama like this. I really, really liked it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes or what happens now. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We've got 3 episodes left. 2 episodes are going to be broadcasting next Sunday, and then the finale, episode 5, is going to be broadcasting the Sunday after. Disney Plus is going to get this some point in 2026. When does the Steelbook for this come out? Okay, so it doesn't have a release date. The War Between the Land and the Sea Steelbook does not have a release date yet. I'm looking forward to seeing the Homo Aqua territories underwater, see what it's like in the next episode. Yeah, it's a good way. It's a good cliffhanger. Like, okay, the next meeting that we have is going to be at the deepest point of the ocean, and you folks are going to have to try and figure out a way to get down there, especially now that we've dumped all of the plastic on the land. So the stakes are raised immediately. But yeah, it was a really good set piece as well. All of the plastic and everything being thrown onto the land, and Barclay's estranged wife Barbara and child Kirby were nearly killed in the ensuing chaos, and the driver of the car gets killed. Yeah, that was a really good bit. Like, that was a really nice little moment, a really good character beat for Barbara. The plastic downpour reminded me a lot of Praxeus. Yeah, you can definitely tell it's the same writer. Like Praxeus, I'm a bit of a defender of Praxeus, because I think it is genuinely a Third Doctor episode, like a Terrance Dicks episode of Doctor Who, brought into the 21st century. I know that Terrance Dicks has said stuff like Doctor Who is apolitical, he doesn't write politics Doctor Who. I call bullshit. I don't know if he's consciously doing it. Like, I don't know if he's, like, consciously, like, writing politics in his stories, or if he is just fibbing or whatever. But his stories, his era of Doctor Who is one of the most political of the classic series. Well, all of the classic series was pretty political. I think the most apolitical era of Doctor Who, honestly, is probably the late Tom Baker era, maybe like early Peter Davison era. Off the top of my head, I'd have to look into it a bit deeper, but yeah, it was a very politically charged era when you've got Doctor Who essentially trying to ape the Quatermass experiment. Yeah, a lot of Terrance Dicks's stories were steeped in political allegory and political commentary. I don't know whether or not he was aware of that. I'm not trying to make it sound like he was playing dumb, but I work with what I'm given.